Welcome to the Divorce and Money podcast. Today, I am joined by Dr. Debi Silber. Dr. Debi Silber is the founder of the PBT, Post Betrayal Transformation Institute, as well as National Forgiveness Day, which is celebrated early on September 1st. She runs a WBENC certified women's business enterprise company. She's a holistic psychologist, a health, mindset, and personal development expert, an award winning speaker, the author of Trust Again, Rebuild Roadmap, and a two-time number one international best-selling author of The Unshakable Woman and From Hardened to Heal. Her podcast, From Betrayal to Breakthrough, is also globally ranked within the top 1.5% podcasts. Today, we discuss what actually happens to our mind and body when we go through a betrayal and the 5 stages of recovery after betrayal. In my work specifically, the brain fog that is caused by this betrayal prevents individuals from making the best decisions from them because they are not able to see clearly and think about what's best for them until they process the actual trauma of the betray and reach stage 5 in their recovery process. Let's get to it. Marriage is about love. Divorce is about money. Without the right guidance, critical mistakes can have lasting financial consequences. That is where I come in. My name is Gabriella Martinelli, founder at Ever After Wealth. As a certified divorce financial analyst, I provide my clients financial clarity, strategic divorce planning, and long-term stability. On this podcast, I am sharing what you need to know about getting through a divorce, protecting your legacy, growing your wealth and assets post-divorce, and figuring it out what you really want in this next stage of life. Let's get started. As I mentioned today, I have a very special guest, and I'm super excited to bring this conversation to my neck of the woods. Dr. Debi Silber, I had the pleasure to be a guest on her podcast, and we're going to talk all about that. But I love to bring her here today because we're going to flip the coin. We're not going to talk so much about money, but we're going to talk about the other side of this coin, which is all of these emotions in a very particular, under a very particular set of circumstances, which is betrayal. So Dr. Debi Silber, welcome to the Divorce and Money podcast. I'm excited to have you here.
Excited for our conversation.
Yes, and yes, and we're going to try to go easy on you, but we do need you to say a lot of things. So hopefully we can get you through it. The one thing before we start, I know I made a little bit of an introduction to you on my podcast, but what is the one thing that you would like to share with our audience today that you would like for them? If I said it, you want them to hear it again. And if I didn't, you want them to know about you and the work you do.
Yeah. Really my whole specialty is betrayal. There are so many people so tragically stuck for years, decades, a lifetime. There is a proven, predictable, research-based way to heal from all of it. So if you've been through the worst of it already and you're just fine, that's not healed. You owe it to yourself to transform. And hopefully we'll get to how we can do that today.
And that is so important, right? Because aside from the divorce situation, that is who I work with and you work a lot with, we tend to do that as human beings, right? We try to push through. We don't really feel the emotions. We put them down and we keep going. And that comes back to bite us at some time that we're not even expecting it. And that was really creates all of the underlying problems that we create in our lives. Is because we don't really process or we go through the recovery the way we're supposed to do it, right? So betrayal is tough. And when we're talking betrayal in a marriage, that is something that is very hard almost to explain to someone that didn't live through it. And I feel like all the research and the work that you have done on this, and is so necessary. See, I touch on the tip of the iceberg, if you will. My program, the EAW framework for divorce, it talks about emotions, right? You cannot make financial decisions if you don't understand the emotions that you're going through in the moment, because it are going to affect the decisions. So I always say, well, divorce enters the room, those emotions spike to the roof, and those are very hard, and you need to work through them. Now, if we say emotions just because of a divorce, and then if betrayal is on top of that, oh my God, like it's just impossible at times to even put a thought together.
Yeah, well, that's because in my research, that was the first discovery. I did a study just to get myself out of my own mess. There wasn't a book, there wasn't a course, there wasn't a mentor, and I was really struggling. So here I was, 4 kids, 6 dogs, a business, and I enroll in a PhD program just so that I can figure this out at that level. And that study made 3 discoveries. And the first one really relates to what you're talking about. Betrayal is a very different type of experience. So anybody who tells you trauma is trauma, that's not true. And it's so different because this is such a shock to the body, to the mind, to the heart. You cannot grieve your way through betrayal. You cannot positive think your way through betrayal. So all of the tools and all of the, even the, let's say, somatic practices, and let's say talk therapy, and all of these wonderful things that people think will help you out of it, those are great tools, but it has to be very specific because betrayal is very different. And when we treat it like other traumas and other painful experiences, that's why we can stay stuck for years and even decades. And when someone has been through divorce and been through betrayal, they've been through such a shock that staying stuck just keeps them in this place of where they're sick, they're struggling with symptoms. They may even get to a place where they're fine. Fine by no means is healed. That's not healed. That's just functioning. There's transformation waiting if they understand the nature of betrayal, how to work with it, and that it is a very different experience. Do you want me to share why it's different?
Oh, yes, I want you to share everything. I want you to share everything with us, please. If I don't have to ask you a question the rest of the time, I'm good with it. Just go.
Here we go. Okay,
Yes.
so think about it. Like let's say you lose someone you love. You grieve, you're sad, you mourn the lost, life will never be the same. You don't go back and question the relationship. You don't question your ability to trust. You don't question your
Yeah.
sanity. With betrayal, you do. And here's the thing too. When you lose someone you love, people, they rally, right? What do you need? How can I help? They bring the
Wow.
casseroles, right? So often with betrayal, what happens is the person who's been betrayed, because they're so ashamed, they're so embarrassed, they're so humiliated by something they didn't even do. So they struggle and suffer in silence. So now here they've had one of the most painful of the human experiences, and they're not telling anybody. And even what to make matters worse, very often they're covering for the betrayer.
Mm.
They're so loved by the family, by the community, by the friends. So now on top of that, that's compounded. So imagine one of the biggest traumas ever. Let's say it's like a random Tuesday, and then the kids are like, "What's for dinner, mom? Dad, what's going on?" And you're supposed to act like nothing is happening, right? You're supposed to go to work. You're supposed to function. It's impossible. And now here's something else that people don't realize as it relates to betrayal. You go to a well-meaning, well-intentioned coach, therapist,
Mm.
counselor, and they say at some point, well, you need to learn how to trust again. Now, I wrote the book Trust Again, so I understand the importance of learning how to trust. And they say to you, well, start with something low stakes. Start with like a friend. Now, again, it sounds good. That's one of the worst things ever. And here's why. Think about this. When we decide someone is trustworthy, right? Whatever our system to discern trustworthiness is, if someone says or does something 50 or 100 times, whatever it is, I can deem them trustworthy. They have my seal of approval as far as trust goes. Now think about it.
Right.
Now that person betrays us. Not only is that a shock because that was the person we ran to when other people were causing harm. Now that's the person causing the harm. That's the person who gave us a sense of safety and security. That's the person who took it away. What's even more shocking is we look at it saying, as terrifying as that is, that I can't trust that person, my whole system that I created to discern trustworthiness is fundamentally flawed. It's broken. I
Mm.
can't trust myself. My system doesn't work. So when someone says, well, let's just start small, trust that person, we don't have the ability until it's rebuilt to trust ourselves, right? So
Wow.
it's one of the biggest faults I see. And so because we don't like that feeling, we just blindly trust again because we assume I have to get over this, so let me just trust again. Or we withhold trust for, with everybody, and we
With
live
everybody.
behind walls. This is all unhealed betrayal. That's only the first discovery.
Wow. Okay, I feel like I need to take a break, and because what you're saying is so. In if you think about that, it feels or it should or it's like, why wouldn't we think about that? Why I didn't think about that? And it's so simple and so complicated at the same time that someone has to
Mhm.
bring it up so we can understand that's what's
Yes.
really happening. I think that you just touch on something that is so important. It's like almost like your compass is broken.
Mhm.
Like you're supposed to guide yourself with this compass, and then suddenly it's broken. So how do you trust that you're going in the right direction? It is so, and I know we discussed this before, and I see that in clients all the time. It's like,
Mhm.
because infidelity usually is attached to, if it is a physical infidelity, is attached to financial infidelity. Is a thing. Sometimes it's
Mhm.
just financial infidelity,
Mhm.
same level of pain, by the way, and
Mhm.
hurt.
Mhm.
But even showing the data where there wasn't any money lost or given to a third party, or there's no
Mhm.
hidden accounts, and they still cannot believe it. So forget
Mhm.
about the other side. If I'm working with the spouse that potentially was the one that was betraying the spouse, but
Mhm.
even working with the spouse that was betrayed, when I show data,
Yeah.
they cannot believe it. They don't want to believe it. They just don't have the capacity because they feel they're making a mistake.
That's it. They don't trust themselves. It hasn't been rebuilt. And this is why, again, when someone goes to that well-meaning, well-intentioned therapist, counselor, coach, they're not taught this. So they don't, so they treat it from just mentally or emotionally, or they treat it like other traumas, and they're missing it completely. Betrayal is so different. Here's why it's different too. Other traumas happen to you, right? Betrayal is something that is done to you. It's a different thing. And so it requires a whole different set of tools. And it's so missed. And then what happens is, because practitioners don't have this training, what they do is they're using their wonderful tools that they have, but they're falling flat. The client may get to a point where they plateau, and then they graduate that client, they graduate that patient. And so let's say it's a coach. The coach feels like, I didn't know what else to do for them. The client feels like, I guess this is as good as it gets. And they both miss the biggest part of because the transformation hasn't even happened. That's the third discovery. And happy to go through that. And the second one, because you'll see exactly what gets missed.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Yes, you have to. Yes.
The second discovery was that there's actually a collection of symptoms, physical, mental, and emotional, so common to betrayal, it's now known as post betrayal syndrome. Now, we've tested over 100,000 people to see to what extent they're struggling. And here's the thing, people assume these symptoms are just tied to, aging, stress. No, they're directly tied to your betrayal. For example, we had a woman in our community, and this is when we were working with clients. Now we just work with practitioners. But when we had clients coming in, there was a woman in her mid 80s, and she had a 70 plus year digestive issue. 45% of everybody betrayed has a gut issue of some kind. Crohn's, IBS, diverticulitis. 70 plus years from a family betrayal. She was adopted. They didn't tell her. It's like something like that. So you can imagine the medications, the supplements, the foods, the protocols. And eventually she just realized, she just thought and believed, I just have a bad stomach, right? 2 weeks into our program, she healed from a 70 plus year digestive issue. That's what happens when you deal with the root cause. But when people don't understand, they're treating each symptom as its own thing. They're medicating and suppressing and never getting to the root. Because when you get to the root, you heal from all of it. Accelerated aging, immune suppression, weight issues, anxiety, hormonal changes, depression, like all of it. When you deal with the root cause, which was the betrayal, every single one of those symptoms heals. And that happens through the third discovery.
Wow. So it is so powerful because I think that it's not just about going to the wrong professional, which I usually talk about divorce. I'm like, you need your experts, it's divorce expert. But even that, we need so many other experts. And we treat these isolated situations as the one thing. And the one person who helps me with everything. And this type of trauma that, let's be honest, yes, I think I was looking at the statistics and it's only, there's like 65-70% of rate of divorce in general, but because of some type of betrayal, those are the higher percentage. Sometimes you get the ones that, hey, we grew up apart, we know this is not the best for us, we're going to be amicable, we're going to move on and go into it. No, the majority of them is this, there's some type of betrayal, whether it is physical betrayal with a third party or the financial betrayal. Sometimes it's family betrayal, like when I'm taking this money, giving it to my family, I'm not telling you and you're my spouse, etc. So I feel like this expertise is so important. And I know that we're trying to give my listeners, the individuals going through this process, the tools, but we need those professionals, the professionals that now you're training because of your research, to be able to help them. Because especially in divorce, it happening is not going to stop for you. It's not going to give you time to go through the process to get over this trauma in order for you to make these decisions. That's just, it's going to continue.
And I'll tell you, we certify professionals like you as well, because think about it, you meet with them, you have the best plan, and then what happens is they agree on it, it sounds good, and then they flip. They change their mind. That's because of that trust issue. So when you understand, right, what's happening with that betrayed client, you know the language, you know what stage they're in out of the 5 stages, you know what they're able to deal with, what to bring them at that time, what they're not ready for, so that instead of you looking at them like they're my most resistant client, they're the ones who I can't count on, they're the loose cannon, you realize, oh my gosh, because they're betrayed, I need to know the language, where they're coming from, what stage they're at, so I can guide them appropriately through this whole experience.
So true. And that takes me to the next one. Can you please? And I know that one of the things that we talked when I was a guest, and I had my aha moment when you talked very briefly about the 5 stages, right, of this breakthrough. I know we stop in one, which is number 3, which is very interesting to me, and we can touch it. But can you guide us through these 5 stages, how they look like, how the individual is feeling, what could they do individually, and the professionals, and yes, I think the ideal would be for us professionals, let's go and get your certification, because that's the way to help our clients. So 100%. So but how can help the audience and say, okay, you were at in a betray, maybe you're not working with this experts just yet, let me tell you about the stages. Can you walk us through that?
Yes, that was the third discovery. And for me personally, it was the most exciting, because what we learned was, excuse me, while we can stay stuck for years, decades, a lifetime, and most people do, if we're going to fully heal, we will move through 5 proven, predictable stages. And what's even more exciting about that is we know what happens physically, mentally, and emotionally at each stage. And we know what we need to do in order to move them from one stage to the next. Healing is entirely predictable. So I'm going to briefly walk you through the stages so you get a sense of each one. Stage one is actually before it happens. And what's so interesting about stage one is this: when we're in what we believe is a healthy relationship, whether it's partners, whether it's a work scenario, family, we trust, right? Because that's what we do in a healthy relationship. And we're not scanning for betrayal. We're not looking for it. We're doing what we're just kind of going through the relationship in a way that we feel is wise trust, right? So that's why it's such a shock, because we never saw it coming. We weren't supposed to. We were abiding by the spoken or unspoken rules of that relationship. We may have been on autopilot because we had a lot to do. We're raising families, we're working, we're doing all the things. But here's the thing. Once we're shocked, people spend a lot of time on ruminating, going back and looking for it and looking, what did I miss? How can I? Now, again, a well-meaning, well-intentioned coach, counselor, therapist will say, you need to move on. Here's the problem with that. That process is so important because what they're doing is they're thinking, if I can figure out what I missed, it's going to prevent it. I can prevent it from happening again. You see, very important process. So they need to do that. They also intentionally and unintentionally turned down their intuition. Now, unintentionally, it's because we're busy, right? We're the only way we can get things
Yeah,
done.
life keeps
Less
going.
doing, more doing. Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. But we intentionally turn it down too. Some of us do this. And I don't want anybody angry or upset with themselves if they do this. We do this because I'm going to pretend I don't see that. I'm going to pretend that didn't happen. I'm going to assume that's not what's happening, whatever it is. And we do that because if we were to confront that person based on what our intuition is telling us, it's going to create a cascade of events that we may not be mentally, emotionally, financially ready for. Right?
Wow.
So we have the family and the plans and the work and it's going to shake it all up. So we think, many of us think, I'm just going to like turn down that intuition because if I face
Yeah.
this, my whole life is about to change. So don't be upset with yourself if that's what you've done. It's very, very common. It's almost like, have you ever had a hanging thread on a sweater and you're like, if I pull this thing,
Oh,
the whole
yes.
thing may, right?
Yes.
Anyway, so now we're in stage two, shock, trauma, right? Where our whole life has just
Pain. That pain
pain,
is real, isn't it?
deep pain. It is, it's a shock to the system and our nervous system. Now we've ignited the stress response. We are headed for every single stress related symptom, illness, condition, disease. The mind, we're like, what just happened? Our whole life, just we created this psychological earthquake. Life is now before it happened and after it happened. The bottom has bottomed out on us and a new bottom hasn't been formed yet. It's terrifying. But right, but think about it. If the bottom were to bottom out on you, what would you do? You grab hold of anything or anyone in order to stay safe and stay alive. That's stage three. Now, your clients may be coming to you in stage two. Do you see how they are so not ready to make decisions in that space?
100%. They don't want to see. They don't want to see the documents. They don't want to. They don't even want to guess because yes, because they don't know what they're going to uncover. And I will tell you this: a lot of the times, I am finding certain things, some little red flags, nothing big, and you can hear the even the justification on their words. It's like, no, but oh yeah, that was an account, but yeah, but I don't think, like, it's always like, I don't want to, because obviously I understand it's painful, like on top of whatever is they found, finding something else is just too hard. it's too hard to phantom because we don't know. Is that actually the not knowing what else is out there, basically?
That's it. And so they're
Yeah.
in this deeply painful space of
Yeah.
stage 2, and they need the right support, the right tools, the right language, the right, treatment at that time. Anyway, they get
Yeah.
to stage 3. Here's where, now this is what's so interesting. Stage 3, they're able to work again, they're able to take care of their kids, they're functioning, they're fine, but there's a flatness to it. There's a safety behind walls. I'm okay as long as I don't speak to them. I'm okay as long as we don't talk about them, right? They're not healed. And if anything, they're going to be hardened. Here's where they can get bitter, angry, resentful. But
Mm.
they feel this safe space they've created is so much better than the shock and trauma they just came from. So they take it, and this is where they stay. This is not
Ah.
healed. This is where they have repeat betrayals. This is where they have symptoms of post betrayal syndrome. This is where they feel awful. Now, here's the thing, because they feel so bad, but they don't know there's a stage 4 or stage 5, right here they start numbing, they start avoiding. They start using food, drugs, alcohol, work, TV. So now think about it. They do it for a day, a week, a month. Now it's a habit, a year, 10 years, 20 years. And I can see someone 20 years, 30 years later and say, that emotional eating you're doing, that, whatever. Do you think that has anything to do with your betrayal? And they'd look at me like I'm crazy. And they'd say it happened 20 years ago. Doesn't matter. All they did was put themselves in stage 3 and stay there. And this is it's such a painful spot, because here's where they're going to go to therapy or to counseling or to see a coach. And that person does not have the does not understand the 5 stages. They'll use their mindset tools, or they'll say, let's be more accountable. Let's create a plan. And it has nothing to do with that. Do you see? Great tools, wrong time. So, and so they graduate that client, and then the client's like, this is as good as it's going to get, I guess. And the coach is feeling like, it must be me. I must not be a good coach. They are a good coach. Betrayal's a different thing.
Different. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Anyway,
Yeah.
so if willingness is a big word right here. If they're willing to grieve, mourn the loss, do a bunch of things, you can move to stage 4. Stage 4 is finding and adjusting to a new normal. Here's where you acknowledge, I can't change what happened and I can't undo it, but I control what I do with it. Right here is all about, what do I need now? Who am I ready to become? What have I outgrown? How was I settling? What do I, at this stage, with what I'm deliberately and intentionally creating, what would serve me best right here? What will I no longer tolerate? We are creating and rebuilding a new version of ourselves. And if we keep this going, but now it's very confrontational here, and a lot of people aren't willing to do this, because you may hear from other people, because all of a sudden you're starting to have some boundaries. And they're like, what's that about? Right? They liked you better when they knew where you stood. You're changing the script, you're rewriting the script. And many people are unwilling to be uncomfortable. So they stay in that stage 3, where really nothing changes. But if you're willing to be uncomfortable, willing to rebuild this new version of you, start with new boundaries, all different things. You settle into stage 4, and then eventually you move into stage 5, and that's healing, rebirth, and a new worldview. The body now is healing. You're doing new things, eating well, exercising. You couldn't do that before. Now you can. You're making new rules. You see things so differently than you were, and this is why so many people, they're spending so much of their time on the person who hurt them, on why, on revenge, on all of these things. And then they say, what do I do? I want to meet someone else, or what do I do? And I say every single time, your energy is best spent moving to stage 5, because in stage 3 you can only see things from stage 3, and you can only make stage 3 decisions. Stage 4, you're thinking stage 4 thoughts, making stage 4 decisions. Get yourself from to stage 5 so you see things from a stage 5 perspective, because now you're making decisions from a place of strength and clarity versus scarcity and fear.
Wow. So it just is so eye opening on so many levels. And I will tell you this, that stage 3 that I learned when I had my conversation with you, uh that it's just and I've been identified almost where these individuals are, because and one of the things we talk is the anger, the all about that other person that betrayed us, rather than thinking about ourselves and what's good for us, like when they go into the stage 4. And it's just what really bothers me, honestly, is these individuals, especially the ones I work with, they have to make these decisions when they are in this very difficult stage 3. And that generates all kinds of bad decisions, because none of the decisions are about them. They're all about the other person a lot of the times, because it's angry and we're going to make them pay, and I want them to suffer, and which I understand. I'm not judging, but it's just very interesting, because I feel like if we could get them to work, to do the work they need to do with the actual right expert, because this is a different type of trauma, they could potentially move a little faster. Not that we need to push through this process, right? But at least there should be a continuum where we're getting better. So then you're allowed to make these decisions before it's too late, right? And then you spend all this money in attorneys, professionals, court, you end up in a court, everything is upside down because you're in that stage. I understand why. I can see it. It's just I feel like you are absolutely correct. They don't have the right tools, the right professionals to help them understand what they're going through. It's almost like having an accident and going to go to a physical therapist. You cannot go to just any physical therapist or any doctor. Those that they understand where is your leg that has surgery or is your arms, they know what to do to get you to the next level. That is so important.
Do you know how much money they would save if they moved through the stages? Because when you're making decisions in stage 5, and when you spend that time moving through the stages, the amount, the expense, the emotional, the physical, the financial expense in stage 3 is mind blowing. And not even that, you're having symptoms of post betrayal syndrome in stage 3. I talk to HR all the time, and I tell them, like, they're paying, let's say, for therapy for some of their people who aren't letting them know it's a betrayal. That's the most expensive client, your employee, because they're stuck in stage 3, because now they're having symptoms, every stress related symptom, illness, condition, disease. You can't think straight when you're in stage 3. You can't function appropriately. So now here you are trying to navigate, negotiate a divorce. You have brain fog, you have anxiety, you're exhausted, you don't trust yourself and trust your decisions. You haven't rebuilt trust in others as well. So you don't trust who's representing you, who you're speaking with. You don't trust any of it. So that's why stage 3 is quicksand. It's the worst place to stay. And that's where most people stay for the longest.
I can see that because you're coming from this shock and pain, right? That you come to, and you kind of find some kind of normalcy, and you're like, okay, it doesn't. It's like almost if you're stepping on something that is hot, and you're like, okay, that is not too hot here. I'm gonna stay here. I don't want to move because I'm gonna get burned, and then it's like you don't recover because you're stuck, and you're stuck in that. And there's another part of this is, and you said it, and I think it's very important. A lot of the things happen in private and in secret. Maybe you have the one friend, maybe you have some family members. There is this not every case is different, right? We're not generalizing, but in general, that you want to protect that other person that actually betray you. And and it happens, and I think it happens for different reasons, right? Men and women, because it happens to everybody. So you, on one sense, you want to protect that person, so you don't want people to know. And then the other side of this is, we're here talking about very smart people. We're talking also about intelligent people, successful people, business owners, physicians, CEOs. Like, it happens to everybody. It's not just a one type of person that goes through this. And it feels, and you tell me because you're the one that did the research, it doesn't matter who you are, your intelligence, your worth, your success, it will affect you the same way. These stages are real for everybody.
Everybody. And I will tell you, the smartest people, the smartest people have the hardest time moving through the stages. And here's why. They're using the wrong tool for the job. They are so used to their brilliant mind because it's gotten them through a lot of things. It's gotten them to amazing levels of success. And that's the tool they use to get them through things. Betrayal and healing from betrayal has nothing to do with the mind. So it's actually the wrong tool for the job. So imagine doing every home improvement with a hammer. Sometimes you need a screwdriver. Sometimes you need a different tool. So if for that really smart person who's insisting on intellectualizing or using their brain to get them through it, wrong tool. Wrong tool. And that's where you will find your most resistant client because they're using what they've always used and it's not working. And that's because betrayal is different. It needs a whole different protocol, a whole different set of tools.
And it is trauma. And I think that is another part of this. I think that we are not looking at it, or maybe we are now. And I know you did a lot of research to separate that. And we can talk about it in a minute about the post betrayal syndrome, because it is a thing. And I think it's very different than other things. And we're not really taking it as seriously as we should.
Yeah. We look at each symptom separately and we're not realizing they're all happening because of one thing. So it's when you look at like a holistic approach versus, a different type. A holistic approach looks at the whole thing, right? Where, conventional approach would be looking at like that one symptom. Let's make that one symptom go away. Let's suppress and cover that one symptom. But that symptom is showing up because of that betrayal. So when we look at it like, and that's the thing, when practitioners know that what post-betrayal syndrome, PBS, is, and they name it, and then they say that to somebody, that person sitting across from them realizes, I'm not crazy. I'm not alone. I can heal from this. Just that one thing helps to calm their nervous system because their mind is completely hijacked, right? So knowing that they're not crazy is so helpful because what they do is, let's say, like the woman with the gut issues, she could go to the most well-meaning gut expert. They're wonderful. But if a betrayal's at the root, you're only hacking away at the leaves. She could, when someone has symptoms of anxiety, then they take something for the anxiety. They have weight issues, they take something, they diet. When they have sleep problems, they take something to help them sleep. Every single one of those symptoms is due to the unhealed betrayal.
Yes, I don't even know that is anything that I can say to add to that, because I think we're not paying enough attention to that. And as professionals, we need to do that. And I will be honest with you, I started paying more attention after our last conversation because I thought, okay, I am thinking about emotions and, financial behavior and all of those things. But this is a whole other thing. And it has to be treated in a certain way. And there's not enough professionals that they can do this. And I think the most important thing that you said today is like, do not blame yourself. Because I think that's how it started. I should have known better. I should have seen the signs. I'm like, no, not really, because why would you? First of all, why would you be looking for that? If you're with someone that you trust, you're not going to be living your life looking for whether they're betraying you or not. That's what happens after, right?
Exactly.
I'm like,
yes.
yeah.
And can I offer a little reframe there to make someone feel better?
Yes, please.
Yes. Okay. You don't know how to think like a betrayer. That's a good thing. That's a
Yes.
good
Yes.
thing. You
Yes.
were trusting. You were having your beautiful open heart going into this relationship, assuming the person was living by those same rules. That's a beautiful thing you have. Now, what you don't want to do is become hardened, where you say, that's it. No one can be trusted again, where you're living in this stage 3 world. And I can tell you 67% of everybody betrayed puts that big wall up. They're like, nope, that's it. I'm never trusting again. That's not fair to you. Look at the power you give that person when you close off your heart, when you close off that connection because of someone else's actions. That's not fair. Get to stage 5. Watch how you live in stage 5. Watch who you become, a healed, whole, healthy, vibrant, empowered, beautiful version of you. Then make decisions from there. And I guarantee you, it won't be you're going to keep everybody at a distance. Life is too meaningful to do that.
Wow. I want to end like that. Like, I'm like, okay, let's not say anything else. I want to end with that. I'm telling you, this is the other part of this. There is light on the other side of the tunnel. There is a way to trust yourself again, trust people again, and have a whole life, but don't skip the step. I think that that should be the message. Do not skip the steps. You're not at fault for what happened to you, what was done to you. As you mentioned, it's something that was done to you. You're not at fault. You do need to recover, though. You own it to yourself to do the work, go through the stages, I'm sorry, and do not get stuck in that third stage that seems comfortable and safe, but it isn't. It really isn't, because it's going to come back up to you, right? You wrote a couple of books. I want you to mention the books. We're going to put the links in the notes because I glanced over the books and I think they're very important.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I've written 9 books, but based on what we talked about today, the ones that are most appropriate would be Trust Again. That's for someone who wants to really understand the nuts and bolts of betrayal, how deeply it impacts them physically, mentally, emotionally. That's the book for them. I just wrote Unstuck, and that's my newest book. That's for practitioners because I want any coach, counselor, therapist to know how different betrayal is. And this is not that they need to specialize in this by any means. These people are coming your way anyway. You should know what they need so that they don't walk out of that session saying, this person really just didn't help me. So Unstuck gives practitioners the language, the tools to understand what betrayal looks like. It's certainly not as deep as our practitioner program, but it gives them the tools to understand what it looks like. It's a great first step. So they know, oh, wow, I've been treating this all wrong.
Exactly. And not only that, maybe is one of those steps when you have to say, as a professional, I can identify what's happening. I'm going to tell this person right now to go talk to the actual experts. They can come back to me after, once they are done with that work that they need. So I think that's very important as a professional, that we know we don't do all of it. We
Right.
cannot do all of it. In the same way that a coach looks for trauma and says, oh, you need a therapist. Well, a divorce coach potentially could say, there's trauma here because of this betrayal. You need to go find this expert. Deal with that. I can help you with the divorce minutia, but if you're not going to be doing that work with them, you're not going to be able to succeed and thrive on what's coming next.
I love that you said that. And we even have a script for that in Unstuck. There's a script there of what to say. But I love that you mentioned that because you know what that does? It helps the client trust you. Because now here you are saying, this is not my area of expertise. I don't want to pretend that it is. And because of that, I'm going to put you in the hands of somebody who they've studied this. They know the 5 stages. They can help you through it. And I'm here when you're ready.
Yes. And I think that's what you should do. As professionals, whatever is our expertise, we should recognize what we cannot do for our clients or patients and give them the tools. So if let's talk about, if a professional that is listening wants to go and explore your certification because they want to work more with these individuals, wants to find that, where do they go? And then second, if someone is looking for this professional, if they say, you know what, I didn't know about these stages, I was betrayed, I'm trying to pull through this alone, and I want to find the right professional, where do they go to find the person that you train?
Great, thank you. So everything is at the PBT, as in Post Betrayal Transformation Institute.com, the PBTinstitute.com. But to answer your question specifically, for the practitioner, they need to look at our certification and see if that resonates with them. And that's the PBTinstitute.com/get-certified. For the person who is looking for a certified PBT coach or practitioner, we have a wait list we're working on our directory of coaches and practitioners, but in the meantime, we have a wait list, and that's where that person can go, add themselves to the wait list. And until the directory is up, I'm matching them up with coaches and practitioners that I've certified that I feel who would be a good match for them.
I love it. I love that, because I like that part, that there will be a match. Not everyone can work with everyone, and they all need different tools, and not everybody can offer the tools. So I love that. We're going to put the links on the notes for the episode so everybody can find it, because I know it was a lot. I thank you so much, because this topic is so important and it touches so many individuals. And this is not just for someone going through a divorce. Our podcast is about divorce and money, but this affects everyone, and everyone should be working through this trauma, whether you're going through a divorce or not, whether this was your spouse or not. Is trauma anyway. You betrayed on some level by somebody. So I think this is so important. Thank you again, Dr. Debi, for being here today. There's so many other things I would like to ask you, but we're going to have to pencil that conversation for another time. And for those listening to us, thank you for being here. Please share this episode with anyone that you feel may benefit. Again, whether it's going through a divorce or not, this is for someone that has gone through a betrayal or is going through it. Or maybe someone went through it 2 years ago and they think that they are already passed on to the stage 4 and 5, and maybe they are recognizing, wait a minute, that stage 3 seems very familiar. So please share this episode, and we'll see you next time in the Divorce and Money podcast. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. If you're going through a separation or divorce, please contact me through my website at everafterwealth.com. I would love to be a resource and partner as you navigate this season and prepare for your financial future. I'll see you in the next episode.